Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Michael from Making Lens Media, and today we'll be looking at how to edit this image right here. First off, I would like to crop into this image just so I can get more close up of the model's face, right? Because that's what I want to actually look at for this particular image, right? So all right, we'll leave it here. We'll do the rest of the cropping in Photoshop. So let's just hit enter. All right, so yeah, we have it all zoomed up and close, and that's what I really want for this particular tutorial. So what I like to do when I get into capture one, I like to pull in my blacks. Typically, most times when I come to capture one, this is one of the first thing I do. So let's pull in my whites a little bit. All right, more so, let me note that I always keep my exposure warning on right here, so just so Photoshop tells me when the image is picking up and then I'm beginning to lose details, right? Let's say for example our exposure is this high. You see this reddish is telling us that, hey, I'm beginning to lose details on this image, is too bright. So basically I just thought to mention that. So let's take it back. So all right, after pulling up my levels adjustment, I like to come to the haze and then I bump it up to, say, 13 is fine, and I'll come to my clarity and bump it up as well, right? So let's say 10 is okay, and then let's add up a little structure to it just so our images talk sharp. Can you see? Yeah, that's what we want, so that's why we have that. All right, so let's go up a little bit. So what I also like to do is I like to crush in my black a little bit more, and the shadows I pull it up just a little bit to compensate for that, right? So basically this is the few things I will do here. And also let's quickly dive into our color a little bit. So okay, we are our skin tone in our color editor. So let's come to this little eyedropper right here and click on skin. See, it makes a sample of where we want our image to look like, right? You could just pick wherever you think you want your skin to look like, because what we're about to do is kind of unify the skin colors a little bit more. Yeah, so we don't have to do so much in Photoshop. So let's bump up the hue. Can you see, like, the entire image is beginning to get one particular kind of color, right? But then again, that's not what we want, because it's going to make the image a whole lot flatter, right? So let's take it down a little bit. So we just want a tiny bit just to make sure that it kind of help blend in the images together, right? So for the lightness, let's take it up just a tiny bit, right? And then for the saturation, we are going to just add up a little bit. What I like to do in Photoshop is I try as much as I can not to go overboard with almost anything I do, be it capture one, be it Photoshop, whatever I do, I try not to go too overboard with it, right? So basically this is what I will do here in capture one, and then I'd like to do the remaining things in Photoshop, and then my color gradings and all. For here I've actually done a little bit of the color grading, right? So let's throw in a little bit of blues to the mid-tone, right? Right, so and then let's make it a little bit brighter, right? So okay, so now we are going to Photoshop. Alright, so here we are in the wonderful world of Photoshop. So what we would like to do here is let's zoom into this image a little bit, right? So first off, I'd like to take out some of the blemishes in this image, because I like to do that before I go in with my frequency separation, right? But for this video we are going to actually do our frequency separation from scratch up. So if you are struggling with how to do frequency separation, video is here for you, right? So first off, now these are the things we'll be using to take care of our skin, right? Because we have the spot healing brush tool, we have the healing brush tool, and we have the patch tool, right? So for the patch tool, what we are going to do, let's duplicate this layer. Let's say Ctrl J to duplicate it, right? So now we are going to be using our patch tool. So what we do with our patch tool is we just circle on the blemish we're trying to remove, and then click on it and drag it away to a part where it's clean enough to replace what we want to take out, right? So we try as much as we can not to go too far from the part where we're trying to replace, just so the coloration and everything stays the same, and then the skin texture around that area is the same, so much so that it doesn't look off, right? Because let's say we take this part out and then we take it to a part as bright as this, right? Can you see it leaves a little bit of patches right there, because Photoshop will be struggling to balance out the colors around that side. But if we take it to a part that is closer to it, it blends in seamlessly, right? So that's the point, really. So all right, so let's go ahead and do this. Right, so these are before and these are after. These are before and these are after. I don't know if you can see it. All right, let's zoom in a little bit more. All right, so let's say these are before and these are after. These are before and these are after. So right now we are actually set to go in with our frequency separation. So like I said, for today we will not be using our action. We are going to actually create our frequency separation from scratch to finish, just so if we have somebody who is actually struggling with how to do frequency separation, so you can actually learn that right now. So all right, so first off, we'd like to merge this image all up together, so we hit Ctrl Shift E to merge everything together. So now in order to create our frequency separation, what is frequency separation to start with? Frequency separation is separating our image into two frequencies, the high frequency and low frequency, whereby we have in the high frequencies the textures, the blemishes and the likes of them, right? And then for the low frequency we have the color variation of the image and the tonal range and all, right? So now it's going to help us work on these two frequencies independently and not have to affect the other one, right? So if we are working on the texture, we are going to work on the high frequency which has a texture in it, and if we're working in on the colors, we are going to be working on the low frequency which has the color in it. Does that make sense? So now let's do our frequency separation. First off, we are going to hit Ctrl J twice. Yeah, so we are going to name this, let's say, color, and we are going to name this one texture. All right, so now first off, let's turn off the visibility of the Alright, so we are going to turn off the visibility of the texture layer, and then we are going to come to the color layer. So what we are going to do in the color layer is we are going to come to filter, we are going to come to blur, and then we are going to come to Gaussian blur. Right, we're going to come to Gaussian blur. So what we are going to do here is, let's take this down a little bit. So for the radius, we are going to take this up to the point where we cannot see the textures anymore, and then we're left with colors, right? So okay, so I think 10 works for me for this image, right? So right now we can't really see textures anymore, we're left with colors, right? Now we are going to hit OK. Now the image is blurry, I get it. So now we're going to come to our texture layer, right? Now we are going to turn on the visibility, and then once you turn on the visibility, you're going to see the image comes back here because the texture layer is actually above the color layer. So what we are going to do with the texture layer is we are going to come to image, we are going to hit apply image. So we are going to come to layer, we are going to change it from merge to the color layer. Right now we're only trying to limit it to the color layer, right? So we're going to come to the blending option here. We're going to change it from multiply to say subtract, right? So we are going to leave our scale at 2 and our offset will be at 128, right? So once you do that, you can see this gray like stuff here. It's totally fine. Just hit OK. Now once that happens, you can see we no longer have the color variation on this part of the image, right? So the colors we have is right here. So if we turn this off, we are going to see the blurred version, and if we turn this on, we are going to see this. So what we are going to do is we are going to come to this blending option and change it from normal to linear light. So once you hit that, the image comes back to normal as if nothing happened. But then again, we have actually succeeded in separating the image into 2 frequencies. Now what I mean by that is if you turn off the color layer, right, you are going to see a whole lot of textures. Right now, if you turn that on and turn off the texture layer, we are going to see that the image is blurred. So it takes both of them together to actually make a complete image, right? Does that make sense? All right, so what we are going to do is we are going to come to our color layer and then further duplicate it. We hit Ctrl J. Now once that is done, we have this into 2. We have this color layer, this color copy, which is our color layer, right? Now we are going to right click on it and then create clipping mask. So whatever we are going to be doing here is what's happening here, but once we make a mistake, right, we can easily just delete this and duplicate it again and then clip it again and then work, instead of having to go over the process over again. Does that make sense? All right, so now we are going to come to our texture layer and then hold shift and come to our color layer here to highlight all of them, and then we are going to hit Ctrl G to put them in a group, and then we are going to rename this separation. Let's capitalize it S as it is a frequency separation, right? So this is a frequency separation group here. So now we'll come to our color copy, right? It's our color layer copy, right? So now we are going to come to what we'll be using for this will be our mixer brush tool. Now for our mixer brush tool, we want to make sure clean brush is selected, right? And then we want to make sure this is being checked. This tells the Photoshop to clean the brush after every stroke, right? Now we're going to keep our wet at 30, our load at 20, our mix at 40, and our flow at 25, right? Now we're going to keep our smoothing 3%, right? Now for our brush size, we are going to be increasing it with our left and right bracket keys, and then we're trying as much as we can to choose a brush size that matches where we're working on at the moment, right? So now what I like to do is for the forehead here, I like to go in circular motion, right? Yeah, just so the color are being blended in properly. So another thing I like to do when I'm working with my mixer brush and I'm working on my color layer, I don't like being distracted with the textures and all that I'm seeing. So I'm going to turn off the texture layer right here. So I'm going to be left with just the blurred version of the image, which is the colors only. So I see how well the image color is transitioning from the highlight to the shadow part of the area, or should I say the contour part of the image, right? So I am going to blend it in seamlessly. I want to have this smooth transition that goes from the highlight to the shadowed part of the image, right? So I just go ahead and do it, and then you see what we have, right? So basically, I would typically advise that we take this process easy and try to master the process really. Okay, so there's no rush, just go along with the process and master it, because it's going to be a game changer. Once you master frequency separation, your photo retouching skill will automatically go really high, because you will understand what you need to do and what you don't have to do to keep your facial structure and all of those things, right? So let's keep practicing, guys. So as you're going, you're just going to keep checking to see how far we've gone, and then all right. So alright, so this is how far we have gone with this image. This is before and these are after. This is before and these are after. You can tell that a lot has been done to this image, and like I said, you just have to be patient with this process and then get used to it, right? Just try to master the overall process and then master your brush settings and how you brush your image, and just be patient with it and try to be observant to see when you are brushing outside of the image, and then know how to correct it when the time comes, right? So you don't wait until you're almost done with the image and you're trying to see how you can recover, right? So basically these are before and these are after, these are before and these are after. So now we are going to do dodging and burning. So for our dodge and burn, we typically use curve adjustment right here. So we are going to click on it twice, right? So we are going to turn off the visibility of the top one again. So we are going to come to the down one. So what we are going to do with that is we are going to pull this up, because this is going to be our dodge. This is going to be for our dodge, right? So we dodge the highlight and then we burn the contour. So then that's why we are pulling this up, so we have this very bright version of the image here. So once we have that on, we're going to hit Ctrl I to invert it. We'll come to the layer right here and then we hit Ctrl I to invert it, right? So we hide. So we are going to turn on the visibility of the up one again. So we are going to come to the up one and then we are going to pull this down, because this is going to be our burn. So turn this down. So we're going to take this off and then hit Ctrl I to invert it again. So for this we are going to name it dodge. Let's capitalize it, dodge, and then for the top one we are going to name it burn. Right, so we are going to hold this and then hold shift and click on the down one to highlight both of them and hit Ctrl G to put them in a group, and then we are going to name this D and So we're going to name it DNG, as if to say dodge and burn. So let's open the group again. So we have our dodge here, which is where the highlighted one is. So for this part, what we are going to use is our brush tool, right, which is our paintbrush tool. So we are going to reduce our opacity down to, like, say maybe 4% or 3%, or whatever works for you is totally fine. Again, with our left and right bracket keys, we are going to increase or decrease our brush size, right? So now we are going to paint into it, right? So we are going to be painting on the highlighted parts of this image, right, just to give this image a more three-dimensional feel and then help the image pop out more, right? So like I said before, we're dodging the highlights and then we are burning the contours, right? So basically it's going to be with white as our foreground color, as white reveals and black hides, right? So as we're revealing, the layer mask here is turning white, right? So that's how it works, really. Right, so basically we have that. Okay, so these are before and these are after, these are before and these are after. What I further like to do is I like to hold alt and click on the mask here to load selection, right? So once we load selection, we're going to come to our filter, we're going to come to blur, and then we're going to come to Gaussian blur, and then for this time we're going to pull it up a little bit just to further soften the edges, right? So we're going to hit OK. Alright, just so the edges are more smoother, right? So we are going to come to our burn here, and then we are going to come in and paint into the contoured part of this image, right, which is basically the shadow part when it comes to photography, right? So basically that's really it. Alright, so these are before and these are after. Again, let's hold alt and click on the mask here to load selection, right? So once we load selection, we are going to come to our blur, Gaussian blur, and we have the values. So we have the values we used earlier, so we're going to leave it there, right? So we're going to click anywhere to bring back the selection. So these before dodging and burning, and this after dodging and burning, this before dodging and burning, and this after dodging and burning. So if you think you actually have done this and it's probably looking too much, you're going to come to the opacity right here and then pull it down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at 90%. So that's what we have, guys. So at this point we are going to hit Ctrl Shift Alt and E to create a stamp visible layer right here, and then once that is done, we are going to see how we are going to add texture to this image, right? Let's duplicate it again. Hit Ctrl J to have two of it. Okay, so once we duplicate it, we are going to hit Ctrl Shift U to desaturate it. So once we desaturate it, what we can do is we are going to right click on the image right here and then convert to smart object. And once that is done, we are going to come to filter, we are going to others, we are going to high pass, right? So we are going to leave the radius at 2.0%. So we are going to right click on this. Now we are going to change the blending mode to say overlay, or we could use soft light, right? So now we have, let's zoom into this image a little bit. You can see the textures that these have added to the image, right? It's looking very crispy, but then again I feel like it's too much, right? So we are going to come to our opacity right here, and then we are going to drop it down to, like, say 25% is okay. Alright, we are going to keep it at 25%. So these are before and these are after, these are before and these are after. Yeah, you can't really see it so much because it's actually subtle change, right? So these are before and these are after, these are before and these are after. So what we are going to further do is, right now we are going to go a little bit with our color grading, right? So let's say Ctrl Shift Alternate E again to create a stand visible layer, and this time we're going to take it to camera raw filter. So we're going to come to our camera raw filter here. So now we are in camera raw. So first let's come to our basic slider right here. Let's drop down the saturation a little bit. Right, see, yeah, so -6 is okay. Let's pump up the vibrance. Let's take down the saturation more. Now let's pump up the vibrance a little bit. So this is fine. So we're right now our image is dark sharp, so we're going to leave our clarity and slider. Let's pump up the dehaze a little bit. Now we're going to come to our blacks. Let's crush it down a little bit, just tiny bit. Focus. For the most part we're done with this color grading from capture one. All right, so let's come to our color grading right here, and then we're going to add a little bit of yellows to the mid-tones, right? Just a tiny bit, right? Yeah, just a tiny bit. And then for the shadow part, we are going to add up a little blue to the image, right? So the highlight, we're going to really leave the highlight like that, because there is this soft look that this image is giving me that I really like. Again, this is an image I'm just working on right now. I've not worked on this image before, and most of the things I'm doing right now is just my typical workflow, and that's how I operate, right? So let's come to our calibration right here, right? So let's, for the blues, let's see. All right, so I think we're going to pull this down a little bit. Yeah, the -10 is fine. Okay, let's do this again. Oh, okay. All right. I think I love this. It looks really nice. Yeah, I think I'll leave it like that. For the reds, I really don't want to touch the red. All right, so we'll leave it at that. So this is what we have right now, and these are before and these are after. These are before and these are after camera roll. So we're going to hit okay, and this is what we have, guys. And for the most part, this is basically what I would do for this